Welcome back to True Story with John Gibson. Today's guest is MMA mixed martial artist, retired, bare knuckle boxing, just recently retired, champion, legend, Chris Leben.
What up, man? Thanks for having me, dude.
Man, completely my pleasure. Thank you so much, Chris. Uh, so I had a ton of questions for you, but I figured I would just start sort of chronologically and kind of move our way forward. I'm a fan, been a long time fan. We're like the same age, so I feel like in some ways I grew up with you in a lot of ways, even having never known you. But with that said, dude, there's part of your life and career. There's certain sort of gaps I'm just unfamiliar with. So, kind of starting from the beginning, you had like a lot of success kind of early on in mixed martial arts, like with gladiators, ECW champ, these things kind of prior to the UFC. But what I'm kind of curious to learn a little bit about is like, how did you get in with Team Quest in that camp so early?
Okay. Yeah, I started at Team Quest. I mean, initially, pretty simple. I had a brief stint in the military that didn't work out the greatest. I think most people story. I was selling cars. My brother was selling cars at a different car lot. I had wrestled in high school, boxed in middle school, and was a big fan of the UFC even back then. And my brother called me one day and he said, dude, I got a job at this car lot and Randy Couture and Matt Lindland are in the garage kicking the shit out of each other. And I was like, what?
Crazy.
I'm on my way.
Yeah.
So turned out that was Team Quest in the very beginning. Back then, it was still called Matt Lindland's USA Auto Wholesale.
Wow.
And I think met my coach Robert Follis. The famous, infamous Robert Follis from Team Quest, and I believe I was the 12th student ever up under the name Team Quest.
It's so amazing that you fell in with those guys. And I grew up a wrestler. And I don't know if this name will mean anything to you, but growing up as like a middle schooler, high schooler, and in early college, I did some Greco-Roman. So I would go to, and I grew up in foster care. I didn't have a lot of resources. So I was really fortunate to get sponsored by a guy named John Bardis. And he sent me to a lot of camps, and he and Randy Couture had been friends for 20 or 30 years back then. They knew each other since the 70s or something. But anyway, because of that, I used to follow the cool wrestlers at Team Quest. And then, Dan Henderson, all these guys. And then you were like the young up and coming guys. And then I feel like you were having this early success. And this is like pre-internet. People don't understand. Like you had to know somebody to like know who want to fight. Like you had to call people.
Right.
But yeah, ultimately you get like transition and you're having all this early success and you get into like Tough and season 1. What is that experience like, man? You're still a young man. You're like, what, 21, 20 maybe?
22, I think. 21, 22. So, yeah there. Well, being a kid that wasn't expected to amount to much from the wrong side of the tracks, just kind of go back, when I started, I very well remember my very first fight. It was for Chael Sonnen show, the FCF, and nobody gave a shit about me. And then I won a fight, and like you said, man, there wasn't like regular internet, but there was some like boards. I think they're like chat boards, and there was like 12 people talking about me on the internet, and I was fucking hooked, dude. People knew my name. That was it. So from that first fight on, I was in Team Quest in the gym, at least 3-4 hours a day, training all day, every day. And, fighting literally every month, sometimes twice a month. And those first 2 or 3 years went really quick. I think I was only 2.5, 3 years into my career when that first Tough show started.
Right.
And Randy, had kind of nudged me on the shoulder and said, hey, I want you to record a VHS, and send it into these people. So I sent him in a video, you know, of me talking about some stuff at the gym. And, you know, that was Craig Pelagian, Spike TV, and the original casting crew for Tough One, you know.
Wow.
So that, you know, that's how it happened. You know, I showed up, and the entire audition process went like this. They said, all right, your first thing you're going to do is you're going to walk in this room. There's a camera in there, and we want you just to sit down in front of the camera and start talking. Well, 21-year-old Chris Leben thought pretty highly of himself, you know. So I sit down, I start giving them all these reasons why I should be on the show and how badass I am. And about 5 minutes into the interview, the side door of the hotel room opens up, and Dana White and Craig Pelagian come storming in the room, just cracking up laughing. And they're like, "That's it, kid. You're on the show."
Awesome. Yeah.
And I'm like, apparently there was multiple days of auditioning. They just left me in my hotel room after that, though, because they had already decided they wanted me on the show. Just
what a cool story.
Interview.
Yeah.
Again, no lack in confidence at that time.
Yeah. That's awesome. What a cool story. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then we got on the show, you know, and I remember telling Dana, yeah, man, maybe I'll get some free beers out of this when I get back to Portland, Oregon. And now I can remember Dana he's told this story multiple times. I mean, we didn't know the show was going to air. And, you know, I thought the greatest thing might be to get a couple free beers out of the deal down the road. You know, that's how big of an impact, you know, we figured it would have.
Right.
Obviously, nobody predicted what it was going to do for the UFC, for my career,
sure,
or fucking American culture as a whole, you know? So
yeah.
it was pretty epic.
Yeah, very epic. And circumstance and timing was completely right. The supportive network, you know, with Spike, that relationship at that time was so crucial. And there, I mean, honestly, like Dana and these guys made a lot of really good decisions, because that tough cast of fighters, you being one of them, you're all legends, man. Like every one of you pretty much had a storied career, and you're all different. You're all unique. You're all totally different people. Yeah, it had to have been epic. And honestly, you touched on it already. My next question was going to be, man, what was it like when you got home? But you said just life changed, I guess, completely.
Yeah, I mean, I went from, you know, thinking I'd get a free beer to not being able to make it from one end of the shopping mall to the other without getting stopped half a dozen times, you know? So,
yeah.
So it was life-changing, you know, definitely.
Yeah. So transitioning on to a little bit, and I don't want to skip over anything here, but I mean, you had a super storied career in the UFC. You had over 20 fights, which is just epic over that span of that, just the UFC career, not even the latter. You know, with that, is there any one fight that stands out to you, you know, maybe particular adversity, something that just, it's a favorite fight, a particular memory?
You know, that's always a tough one, because every fight is the most important fight, you know. But yeah, obviously I had, you know, Terry Martin was, you know, a big one. I was out on my feet for sure. Akiyama, you know,
epic.
I remember walking backstage and turning to my coach Burton Richardson and being like, what was that about halfway through the second round? He's like, no, dude, there was 10 seconds left in the third. I had no idea, because I was on full on autopilot and you can see how halfway through the second round when I got hit and everything just kind of shut off. From there, it was autopilot, you know. Then obviously Vanderlei Silva, for me, he was my hero. You know, before I was ever in the UFC, I was watching him in Pride.
Sure.
You know, trying to emulate his style.
Yeah.
And you know, probably one of the scaredest I've ever been, for sure, was fighting Vanderlei Silva. You know, he might not be the most he might not have the best record in the world, but he probably the most scariest guy you can fight.
Ferocious.
You know, Like, fuck, you're gonna fight Damian Maya. Fuck it, who cares? You know what I mean? Bentley Silva, though, he might put your ass in the hospital.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So,
Oh, sure.
so definitely that was a huge one for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but yeah, man, there's just certain moments that really stick out. Absolutely, those are a couple of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and your fights are all amazing, and it's crazy too, because, I feel like we all know you obviously as like the crippler, and because of these stand-up battles, those fights, Akiyama, Silva, all these fights, but you've always had actually amazing jujitsu. You've had really good jujitsu, and you grew up in Oregon wrestling, which is just hardcore fundamentals, so it's like you've been a true martial artist all along, and I think like that's a really big, important part of your story, because you're always, to speak for you, you're seeking balance, and we've all had adversities and made good, bad decisions. Me speaking for myself there too, but you're living an example and kind of like a life of sobriety, and being able to do that while being an athlete and all these things. And like, that is more than anything, Chris, has been like inspiring to me. That's why I reached out to you, and like, I have followed you for years because you were a tough guy that impressed me. And then you became like a real tough guy, changing like hardcore behavior stuff. So like, can you talk about like that change in your life, that transition?
Yeah, so I will say, it was definitely a little scary for me because I took a few years off to get so, and to come back to fighting. It was scary because that mentality of everything in excess, nothing in moderation. That's the way I live my life. It's the way I fought my fights. I'm going to die or I'm going to win,
Right.
And that's the way that I tend to do everything, whether it's training, women, booze, sugar, fuck, you name it, man. I just want more. So, as far as my, I think in the early years, fighting kept me alive. Like literally, I grant my life to it because the fear of getting my ass kicked on national TV was great enough that I might sober up for a couple weeks,
Sure, and keep a regimen life. Yeah.
And I think that's probably what saved me, allowed me to clean out, dry out for a little bit, before I fought, and then I was off partying and running again. So it was scary. Ultimately, what happened is, I was not happy with the way my UFC career ended. I was having some battles, outside of the cage, and it was affecting my performance inside. The UFC had sent me to rehab for Oxycontin and Percocet. I got off those, but then I got stuck on the Suboxone, and I'm trying to fight on that stuff. Which is a double-edged sword. Saved my life. I didn't overdose, but at the same time, if anybody has ever tried to quit Suboxone, it's not very comfortable. I ended up psych ward twice trying to quit on my own. Ultimately, failed marriage, multiple arrests, shit wasn't pretty, man.
Right.
And nobody really wanted to hang out with me. All those fair weather friends were gone. I wasn't winning in the UFC, and I didn't have a bunch of extra money. So things, all my fair weather friends kind of disappeared on me, and life got really lonely. And ultimately I knew I had to go back to jail again for, a 6-month stint. So I started trying to detox off the Suboxone. They won't put you on any methadone or nothing in California.
Wow.
So ultimately, I was able to do that and quit that, got out, drank immediately, and was like, what the fuck am I doing, man? What am I doing? I just went 6 months without drinking. Obviously I was lost. Now here I am. I'm going to get you know what I mean? And somebody told me once, they said, hey, if you never drink again, I bet you never get arrested again, and that's some true shit. I hate to say it, but every time I've ever been arrested, there's been at least alcohol involved.
Sure.
That being said, I started, going to AA,
Oh, cool.
um, initially on a court ordered to go, and then somewhere in there, that message started to get to me,
Right.
and it was very difficult the first few years,
Well, your
God,
body had to have hurt too. I mean, you had put your body through the ringer. So it's like you had reasonable justification to be on this stuff, I'm sure.
a lot of pain, and that was
Yeah.
all that was used initially too for the start. I got it from the doctor, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, ultimately I've had to learn, like, even if they come from the doctor, they're no good for me,
Right. Right.
I find myself telling my doctors that all the time. I'm in a situation now where I have a neck issue, need surgery, and my option is to deal with the pain,
Yeah.
So I find, we can get into that later, but meditation and other things that you can do,
Mm-hmm.
very proactive with fucking yoga, as much as I
Yeah.
hate it, chiropractic, all these things to keep my body moving as I get older.
Right. Right.
But anyways, getting back to it, I got sober.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to go anymore, and I continued to go on my own.
Right.
I met the guy who's my sponsor now. He's a great friend of mine, a big influence in my life. And next thing I know, I was working here at a gym called the Arena. And, next thing I know, I'm kicking the shit out of all the 20-year-olds, all the pros.
Right.
And dude, I'm kicking the shit out of these kids. My cardio sucks, but, until I lose my cardio, I'm good.
Yeah.
And so I ended up signing a contract with Bellator.
Yeah. Yeah. And what happened? Because the kind of a heart issue or something?
Yeah. So they did my pre-fight medicals, and I found out that I'd more or less blown my heart out for, apparently fucking cocaine and vodka not good for your heart.
Man, wow.
Go figure.
Yeah.
So I they had actually told me I needed a new heart. My action was at 14%. And, just the fast version of the story is they're like, you need a heart, you can't work out, you can't go even walk up a set of stairs. And I didn't listen to him. I continued to train. My coach, Barrett Yoshida, my jiu-jitsu coach, would he'd make me grapple a couple rounds, and then when I'd start getting real pale, he'd make me sit out, and then and slowly but surely my cardio started coming back. And every 6 months I went back to that cardiologist, and every time it's, wow, this is amazing. It's getting better, Well, now we only need to put this vehiculator in you. You don't need a new heart, but I said, well, if I do that, can I do jiu-jitsu? And she's like, no, we don't want you to do that with the she's like, well, and I said, let me go home. And, so I went home and prayed, talked to my old lady, and we figured, that's for everybody, that percent chance that I'm going to die in the next year, that number that she gave me that they get from somewhere. That's for everybody that doesn't change their life, quit drinking. I mean, I had to completely reinvent myself. I had to delete the majority of the phone numbers in my phone.
Right.
I moved from where I lived to another location.
Probably a good move. Yeah.
I changed my diet. And I continued on a program of recovery.
Yeah.
And I was I am now very active in that program.
Yeah.
So
I've
long
seen
story short, I finally, the cardiologist one day was like, this is a miracle. I don't know how this has happened. Most people would plateau, but you are at the low end of normal. And I said, yeah, would you let me fight? And she goes, yeah, you can do anything a regular adult of your age wants to do. The next day, Bare-knuckle called me.
It was amazing. Amazing. It was meant to be.
Yeah. I guess. Oh, yeah.
You had the best ending to a career. Like, as a fan of Chris Leben, and I'm not kissing your ass, it ended just exactly how I wanted it to, man. You got a first round KO, and I know I'm skipping ahead a couple fights, but man, it was such a awesome second chapter for you. And you got to go out there and like, God, man, your last fight. Oh God, what was his name? Quentin. Yeah, man. Oh, like he was no joke either, you know? So like it was awesome. Can you talk a little about the bare knuckle experience?
Yeah, bare knuckle is definitely it's a different breed, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty fast paced, and
exciting.
Initially I was like, when they called, I told them, I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to do MMA. I'm an MMA guy.
Right.
And then I got on YouTube and I looked at it and I started watching some of these fights and I started going, man, this sport was designed for me.
Mm-hmm.
The way no one can lay on top of me, it's a teeny ring. It's half the size of a UFC ring, and they want, guys are just slugging it out, like so. So I called them back and I was like, hey, you know what? On second thought, let's get something going. Okay. Ultimately, I had 4 bare knuckle fights. The first one was a different organization that is no longer. I fought Phil Baroni. That was good. First round knockout.
Yeah, that was quick. And that was a good first fight for you. Phil was on the show a couple of weeks ago. We talked about it a little, and I understand your sentiments. I remember hearing about it and thinking like, oh man, that sounds like caveman. And then I watched it and I was like, no, this is like what boxing is like. This is what you heard boxing was like in the 20s and 30s, those bare knuckle things in the back of a bar, I immediately loved it, immediately. Yeah.
Exactly. There was something too about that first show, and actually all the bare knuckle shows. You have like this feeling where you're like, is this shit legal? Like are the cops gonna come raid this place at any time? Like it just, it's sketchy. And there's that level of adrenaline and excitement because of that,
Sure.
I mean, and it's legit, man. I'll tell you what, the difference, everybody knows the difference between a boxing glove and a 4-ounce glove. Yeah. How much that affects. The difference between a 4-ounce glove and no glove at all is even bigger. It's bigger than a boxing glove and an MMA glove. I mean, it's world of difference the way it feels when you get hit.
It's so quick, and I can't imagine what it feels like being hit. But do you know what? I was thinking about that the other day. I was watching Frank Mir box at Thriller, and I was watching how great he did. I thought Frank did a great job. And I was like, man, this is a clear example of the difference between 4-ounce and boxing gloves, because he went like up to maybe to the last round or something there. And then I can't even imagine bare knuckle. And a lot of the fights finish in the first round. That's why they're so exciting.
I mean, the funniest thing is, sometimes I watch these videos and I read people's comments and they're like, oh, it's not even crisp boxing. And I'm like, dude, you don't get it, bro. You get hit once clean in bare knuckle. If you weigh more than 150 pounds, that fight's over.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That's someone that's never been hit before.
At my weight class, like, it's like the difference between, Dillashaw, Cruz, those guys can move all over the fucking place, do all this tricky shit when they're fighting. You watch a couple heavyweights, it's a different game. They're like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, sure.
It's one shot. You know what I mean? It's one shot at that level without that glove. The ability to set things up and use your jab and pepper a guy there's no such thing as a half power punch in bare knuckle.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Everything is heavy. Everything is dangerous. Yeah. You don't want to get hit by anything.
Right.
But ultimately, it's a fight. You're going to get hit. So you just got to hit them before they hit you and harder. You know? And that's kind of always been my mentality.
Sure. It really was built perfectly for you. It really was.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I've never been known for moving my head a lot or being a tricky guy, but my number one defense has always kind of been offense. Even if they catch me, I'm still swinging back. I'm still going to hit, because if they're close enough to hit me, I'm close enough to hit them,
Sure.
you know?
Sure.
So, and that is what you see a lot of in bare knuckle, and it makes the shit exciting, man.
It does.
You know, because, you know, sometimes you're watching a high level UFC fight and, you know, I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and sometimes I get bored when they're on the ground.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't care who you are. If you're watching a bare knuckle boxing match, you know who's winning and you know who's losing. Yeah. That guy over there that's leaking real bad, he's losing.
Yes. Yeah. You know there's there's no, exactly. There's nothing ambiguous about it. That's for sure.
No. Yeah. 100%.
I know we're coming up a little bit on time, but I wanted to ask you another thing while I had you too. Kind of maybe another third chapter to your life, kind of post-retirement here. I've seen that you've been doing a lot of reffing, which is really impressive and awesome. I mean, in one way, I feel like you're giving back to the sport that you helped be like a founder of, but two, I mean, we needed it. Like we needed help and some, like, there's, you know, this sport's growing, but for almost 25 years now, there's been dire need of good refereeing and judging. So can you share a little bit about how you went about that? And kind of like, is this something you plan on doing just for forever?
So, well, first, yes, something I plan on doing forever. I'm a martial artist, and I'm going to be involved in the combat sports in one aspect or another for as long as I am physically able. And I love reffing in particular. You know, I take it very seriously. It's really great that the country is finally opening back up and I'm able to get back to it. Last weekend, I was in Arkansas doing a pro-am show out there. Great. It's June now, so I've got a couple shows actually in California opening up at the end of the month. So we're really excited about those. And, you know, all these fighters that have been struggling, man, because if you weren't in BKFC, Bellator, UFC, you just weren't fighting.
Yeah, they lost a year. Yeah.
You know, all these guys were sidelined. They had to get jobs at Home Depot or wherever, you know. So I'm so grateful that's opening back up. I've been reffing now for, I mean, if you count the last year, I guess it would be almost 4 years, you know, but the last year I really didn't work much, you know, and very excited, you know, really the goal is to go pro, you know, here in California. Ultimately, you know, California is the toughest state to become a pro referee in. You know, we've got the most organized, best commissions in my, you know, and I've worked in multiple states in the country, and kind of everybody, just like with legal laws, kind of follows along to what they see going California and Nevada. So hopefully, you know, maybe this year's the year, you know, that I make that from right now. I'm amateur in California. I have my pro license in Arkansas, in Michigan. And
cool.
But, you know, ultimately I want to, you know, I would like to be doing, you know, Bellator, the UFC, you know, these big shows, you know, and hopefully you guys will see me part of the sport, you know, and said,
I think it would be amazing to see you ref like a tough finale. How beautiful would that be, man? Like you're in Vegas. First of all, you fought in Vegas a million times. So like a million times. But how cool would it be if you're reffing a tough finalist fight in Vegas? That'd be amazing.
That would be pretty sweet, man. Full circle, dude. You know what I mean?
Do it, Dana. Let's do it. Come on, Sean Shelby. Let's do it.
Yeah, that would be full circle. You know, but you know, it's up to me, man. I got to do the work, you know. So to answer your, the only way to become a ref in Nevada or California is you have to pass one of two courses. That's Herb or Big John McCarthy's.
Okay. Did you do Herb's?
Herb Dean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Both of them you run like 2 courses a year. And I think Big John will pass a maximum of 2 people a course.
Sure.
Just to give you an idea. And Herb is tough. I did Herb's course. Extremely tough, even for me having fought my whole life.
Wow.
You know, they really control the influx of, you know, who goes into that field, you know, and they do a phenomenal job. They're making sure that you deserve to be there.
Sure.
If you pass one of those courses, and then you've got to get on with your local commission,
Yeah.
and you got to work as an amateur for multiple years and get your way up. So it's quite the process.
Yeah. Well, I can appreciate the red tape there. I mean, it should be, and who more prestigious to kind of pass these individuals than Big John or Herb Dean. I mean, there's no other more qualified people.
If only it were like that for both reffing and judging and in all 50 states.
Sure. Sure.
I'm not going to mention any specific states, but there's, whether I'm talking about boxing or MMA, but there's just, there's some judging and reffing sometimes that I'm like, that's not the rules. That's
right.
just not the rules, so that's why it is so important to me,
Sure.
As a ref, in my opinion, and this is subjective, as a ref, my number one job is fighter safety. Yes. My number one job is to give both fighters every chance in the world to win. So that, and my number three job is to stay the fuck away and stay out of the limelight. It is not, I don't need to get, I don't need any fame from being the third man in the ring.
Right.
I don't want to get any attention. I don't need to have any theatrics. A good ref shouldn't be seen until he needs to be seen. Sure. Like you need to see him stopping that fight. You know what I mean?
Right. Like, I understand. Yeah.
That's how I view it, and that's how I personally try to take care of business when I'm in there. Yeah.
Great philosophy.
Every chance, but at the same time, I got to keep you safe. That's what I tell fighters. Oh, hang on one second. Sorry, my alarm clock went off.
Oh, no worries. Yeah.
Okay. So, I want to give the fighters every chance, but I got to keep them safe too. They got family at home too, and after it is only a sport,
Right. And I mean, if I were a fighter sharing a cage with you as a ref, I would, you're so well respected. And at one time you walk that walk, so it's like, defer to Chris Leben here, man. Like, for sure. You understand.
Thank you, man. And I'd be lying if I'd say that didn't help.
Yeah, I'm sure.
On Saturday night, I did. I had 6 fights on Saturday night that I reffed, and no complaints. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody complained about a stoppage. Nobody complained about anything else. Not that it doesn't happen.
Sure.
But I get a little bit less of that than some people. Just like, well, fuck, if Chris stopped my fight, it would probably.
That's fair.
True. That's true. If I stop your fight, you're a pro.
It was ready. Yeah.
Trying to keep it safe at that point.
Sure. Man, I appreciate all this so much. Just maybe one last question here. So if people wanted to reach out, maybe locally in the San Diego area, right? To contact you for privates or just anything to reach out, what are the best places to reach you at?
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, especially Instagram, guys. Just Chris Leben MMA, the blue check. That's the one that I'm personally most active on. So if they want to, I'm sitting in my little garage gym right here. Getting ready to do some training after this interview. So if anybody wants one-on-one training or small groups, let me know, hit me up, and we'll get you scheduled in.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What an awesome opportunity. I'll be doing it next time I'm out there, 100%.
Awesome, brother. Awesome. Thanks for having me.
100%. Thank you so much again. This is a True Story with John Gibson and Chris Leben.
All right.
Thank
Later,
you,
dude.